Jake was an ordinary man, working in a small tech repair shop near the city border. He lived a quiet life, fixing phones, computers, and sometimes strange devices that he didn't even understand. He never asked too many questions, but one customer changed everything. She walked into his shop on a rainy evening, wearing a long black coat and strange blue glasses. Her name was Alira, and her voice was calm but serious. She placed a small broken device on the counter and said, "Can you fix this? It's very important." Jake looked at the strange object, blinking lights and soft humming inside it. He had never seen anything like it. But he nodded. "I'll try my best," he said. Alira smiled, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Before leaving, she handed him a card. "If you fix it, come to this address. It will pay you well." Jake didn't think much of it. He was used to strange jobs now and then. That night, Jake worked on the device in his garage. It sparked, hissed, and almost burned his hand once. But finally, it turned on. Suddenly, a blue map appeared in the air, full of moving stars and alien letters. Jake stared at it, frozen. Then the map disappeared. He packed the device and drove to the address on the card. Curiosity burning inside him, the address led him to an old factory building on the edge of town. It looked abandoned, but when Jake knocked, a scanner light passed over his face. And the door opened. Inside, it was not old at all. It was a lab clean, cold, full of machines and glowing lights. Alira was waiting, wearing a white coat now, and no glasses. Her eyes were silver, shining like moonlight. "You fixed it," she said with a strange smile. Jake nodded. "What was that thing?" Alira didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked him to a metal chair. "You've touched alien tech, Jake. I need to run a scan, just to be safe." Before he could reply, she injected something into his arm. It burned. Jake fell to his knees, heart racing, vision blurry. "What? What did you do?" he asked. Alira's face turned pale. "No, that was the wrong serum. I grabbed the wrong one." She rushed to a console. Typing fast, alarms started to blink. Jake felt heat in his chest, something alive moving under his skin. He screamed. Then everything went black. When he woke up, he was lying on a soft bed inside a glass room. Alira was watching him from the other side, worried. "I'm sorry, Jake," she said. "I didn't mean to, but I can't undo it now." Jake sat up slowly. "Undo what?" Alira hesitated. "That injection. It was not meant for humans. It was a sample for a hybrid experiment, something very secret." Jake stared at her. "You mean I'm a test?" "Subject now." She nodded slowly. "Yes, but not just any subject. You're the only one who survived it." Jake felt a cold chill. He looked at his hands. They looked normal, but he didn't feel normal. His hearing was sharper, his vision clearer. He could hear machines humming behind walls, even see tiny writing across the room. "What's happening to me?" he whispered. Alira walked into the room. "You're changing. Your body is adapting. But this must stay secret." "Why?" Jake asked, standing up. "Because," she said quietly, "if the wrong people find out, they will hunt you, capture you, and study you until you're gone." Jake didn't know what to say. He was scared, confused, and angry. "I'm not staying here," he said, walking toward the door. But the door didn't open. Alira pressed a button, and blue light covered the exit. "You can't leave, Jake. Not yet," she said. "You're the chosen subject now, and no one must know." He looked at her, breathing hard. "Chosen by who?" Alira didn't answer. She just stared at him, as if seeing something more inside him than he could see himself. Outside, thunder rolled inside the lab. A secret had just been born. Jake didn't know what he had become, but deep inside, he felt one thing: his life was no longer his own. Jake sat quietly on the soft bed. Staring at his hands, they didn't look different. But he could feel something deep inside. He could hear the sound of electricity moving through wires. He could see the dust in the air, floating slowly. Something was changing inside him, and it scared him. Illyra stood outside the glass room, typing on a screen. Her silver eyes glanced at him now and then. She looked calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. She was hiding something, and he knew it. The door opened with a low hum, and Illyra walked in holding a tray. "Food," she said, placing it on a small table. Jake didn't move. "What did you really inject into me?" he asked. Illyra paused. "It was a hybrid DNA serum. I was working on a long-term project." She sat on a chair across from him. "It wasn't meant for humans, but somehow your body accepted it." Jake frowned. "You said I'm the only one. What happened to the others?" Illyra looked away. They didn't survive. Silence filled the room. Jake felt cold inside. He wasn't part of a small mistake. He was part of something bigger, something darker. "I want to leave," he said firmly. Illyra shook her head. "You can't. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because your body is still changing. You don't know what you're capable of." Jake stood up. "Then help me control it. Don't lock me in here like a prisoner." Illyra sighed and pressed a button on her wristband. The glass wall faded, and the room opened. "Follow me," she said quietly. Jake stepped out, unsure if he should trust her, but he had no other choice. They walked through a long corridor, cold and silent. Strange machines lined the walls, some blinking, others covered in cables. Jake saw a room with a tank filled with green liquid. Inside floated something part human, part alien, unmoving. He stopped and stared. "What is that?" Illyra didn't answer. She kept walking. They reached a large, round chamber. In the center was a giant sphere, glowing with blue light. "This is the core," she said. "It powers the whole lab." Jake stepped closer, drawn to the energy. He could feel it inside him, like it was calling him. "Why do I feel connected to it?" he asked. Illyra turned to him. "Because the serum inside you was created using this energy. It's not just alien, it's ancient." Jake looked at her. "What do you mean?" "There was a race before us," she said. "They built great cities, traveled across stars, and then vanished. All that's left is this energy and a few broken memories." Jake's heart raced. "So, I'm carrying part of a lost alien race inside me." Illyra nodded. "Yes, and that's why it's dangerous. Others would want to take it from you by force." Jake stepped back, confused and afraid. He wasn't ready for this. He was just a normal man, not some chosen subject of alien history. "I need answers," he said. "Real answers." Illyra looked at him carefully, then pointed to a door at the side. "That room has all the data logs, tests, videos. But I warn you, once you know the full truth, there's no going back." Jake walked to the door and stepped inside. The room was dark at first, but screens lit up as he entered. He saw files with names, dates, and photos, some human, some alien. He clicked. On one end a video played. Illyra appeared on screen, younger, smiling. "This is day 1 of the hybrid project," she said. "We believe human DNA can carry the ancient code, but the success rate is low." The next video showed a man screaming, his body changing and then collapsing. Jake turned away, sick to his stomach. He clicked again. This time, the file showed his own photo. Subject 27 Jake Miles. The screen read, "Unexpected compatibility, physical reaction stable, cognitive enhancement detected." Jake stared at it in shock. Illyra had files on him before the mistake happened. That meant it wasn't a mistake at all. He turned around and walked back to Illyra. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Illyra looked at him, her face calm. "I hoped it wouldn't, but deep down, yes, I knew." Jake's mind was spinning. He had been chosen from the start. The injection wasn't an accident. It was a plan. And now, he was part of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. Jake didn't sleep that night. He lay in the dark room Alira had given him, staring at the ceiling, his heart beat louder than before, his breath slower. He could hear machines 2 floors below him, clicking and humming. And when he closed his eyes, he saw stars, moving, spinning, alive. Something was happening inside him. And it wasn't stopping. By morning, his skin felt warm. Like energy was flowing just under the surface. His fingers twitched, reacting before his thoughts when he looked in the mirror. His eyes were no longer dull brown. They were brighter, shifting with small blue sparks. He backed away in fear. "What's happening to me?" He whispered. His reflection didn't answer, but deep inside, something else did. A voice, not loud, not clear, but present. He stepped out into the hallway and found Alira already waiting. She handed him a scanner and said, "You're adapting." Faster than expected, Jake didn't respond. He was tired of small answers, tired of lies. He followed her silently to a lab chamber filled with glowing monitors and a strange bed covered in wires. "Lie down," she said. "I need to study." How far the changes have gone. Jake climbed onto the bed, the surface cold against his back. Machines came alive, scanning his brain, heart, bones, and blood. He watched the screen as shapes and symbols moved fast. Alira looked serious, her eyes jumping between numbers. Finally, she spoke. "The alien code is not just changing you," she said. "It's unlocking something ancient." Jake sat up. "What do you mean by ancient?" Alira hesitated, then turned off the screen. "There was once a race called the Valtari," she said. "They were the first to travel across galaxies. They didn't just build machines, they became part of them." Jake frowned. "So what do they have to do with me?" Alira looked directly at him. "That serum was designed to carry fragments of their DNA, but only 1 in millions can activate it. You did." Jake stood up. Confused and angry, "You used me," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't know." "It would work," she replied softly. "But now that it has, you're not just human anymore." Suddenly, Jake felt a pulse in his head, like an echo from far away. His body stiffened, his hands glowing faintly. Images filled his mind, tall towers made of light, planets covered in silver forests, and creatures with eyes like galaxies. Then it was gone. He dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Alira rushed to his side. "You're connecting," she whispered. "To the Valtari memory." Jake looked at her. "What do they want from me?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But I do know this: you must not leave this lab." "Why?" "Because you're being watched," she said. "Others know the signal was activated when the serum worked. They'll come for you." Jake stood up slowly. "Then I need to prepare. I won't hide forever." Alira didn't smile, but she handed him a device, small, black, shaped like a coin. "Press this if you ever feel the Valtari inside are trying to control you," she said. "It will shock your mind and break the connection, but only use it if you're sure." Jake stared at the device. It felt cold in his hand, heavy with meaning. "You think I'll lose control?" he asked. Alira looked down. "They were powerful, Jake. Some say they weren't just explorers, but gods pretending to be scientists." Jake clenched his jaw. "I'm not going to be their puppet." "I hope not," Alira whispered. "But power like this, it always changes people." Later, alone in his room, Jake stood by the window. The outside world looked the same: trees, sky, clouds, but to him, everything had changed. He could feel vibrations in the ground, sense movement in the wind. He wasn't just part of Earth anymore. He was linked to something far beyond. That night, while trying to sleep, the voice returned. Clearer this time. It didn't use words, but feelings, urgency, fear, need. Jake opened his eyes wide, sweat on. His forehead, he sat up, heart racing. He whispered into the dark, "What do you want from me?" No answer came, but he knew they were listening, and soon they would speak. The transformation had only just begun, and the warning was clear. The moment he stepped outside that lab, the hunt would begin. Jake didn't feel safe anymore, not in the lab, not around Illyra. Not even in his own skin. He had stayed silent for 2 days. But his thoughts were loud. Something was wrong, not just with him, but with everything Illyra had told him. She watched him like a scientist watching a creature in a cage. She spoke, gently, but her eyes always followed, always studied. Jake could feel that this wasn't care. This was control. The room they gave him had no windows, only a screen showing fake skies. The door opened with a scan, which only Illyra and her assistant had. Jake tested it, over and over. Locked, always locked. He began to plan. Not with anger, but with quiet focus. He knew now he couldn't trust anyone but himself. On the 3rd night, he faked sleep while the lab assistant, a short man with green-tinted skin, came in to scan his vitals. Jake noticed the small device on the man's wrist. It opened doors. He needed that device. The next evening, Jake pretended to be weak. He collapsed near the door, groaning, breathing hard. The assistant ran to help, placing his hand on Jake's shoulder. That was the moment. Jake grabbed his wrist and twisted, pulling the device free. The assistant yelled, but Jake hit the emergency light panel, plunging the room into red shadows. Sirens didn't go off. Leah had trusted her team too much. Jake ran, heart pounding, device in hand. He moved through the metal halls, trying to remember the way to the surface. The lab was a maze of doors, lights, and machines. But Jake had memorized the path. He passed rooms filled with glowing tanks, alien bones, broken weapons, and strange creatures in stasis. He didn't stop, didn't look back. His only goal was freedom. Finally, he reached a locked metal door labeled Surface Exit. He pressed the stolen wrist device. Nothing. The light flashed red. Wrong level, a voice said behind him. Jake spun around, ready to fight, but it was Illyra. Standing alone, no guards, no weapon. She looked tired, her silver eyes dim. "You can't leave, Jake," she said softly. "They'll find you, and they'll kill you, or worse." Jake raised his voice. "You said I'm the only one who survived? Then why keep me locked in a cage?" Illyra took a step forward. "Because I didn't want to lose you. I've seen what happens when someone changes too fast." Jake shook his head. "This isn't your choice anymore." She looked at the wrist device and sighed. "You're using the wrong exit," she said. "Follow me. There's another way, a safer one." He hesitated, but then followed her, not because he trusted her, but because he wanted to know why she looked so sad. They walked to a lower level, colder and darker. There, hidden behind a thick panel, was a tunnel. Illyra opened it and stepped aside. "This will take you to the forest. You'll be alone from now on." Jake looked at her. "Why help me now?" Illyra spoke slowly, "Because the serum was never meant to control you. It was meant to carry a message, but you changed the message." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" "You didn't just adapt," she whispered. "You reshaped. The ancient code made it your own." He didn't understand it fully, but he could feel it. He wasn't just a subject. He was becoming something new. Illyra reached into her coat and handed him a small orb. "Take this," she said. "If they come for you, break it. It will send out a wave that hides your signal for 1 day." Jake took it, nodded, and stepped into the tunnel. But before going, he turned to her. "If you really cared, why not come with me?" Illyra looked down. "Because I'm already marked. I can't run, but you still can." Jake said nothing more. He ran through the tunnel, the light fading behind him. Every step felt heavy. Not with fear, but with purpose. When he emerged, he was in a thick forest, cold wind blowing through the trees. No guards, no drones, just nature, silence, and sky. Jake took a deep breath, the air tasting different, cleaner, for the first time since the injection. He was free, but he also knew. Freedom came with a price. Now he was alone, now he was hunted, and now the real journey would begin. Jake ran deeper into the forest, branches snapping under his feet. Cold air burned in his lungs, and the night sky above looked endless. He didn't know where he was or who might be watching, but he knew one thing, clearly, he was not safe. Anymore, leaves rustled behind him. He turned fast, his senses sharper than ever. No animals, no wind, just silence. A silence too perfect. Jake crouched low. Hiding under a thick bush, he closed his eyes, focusing on the energy inside him. It buzzed like a quiet storm, pulsing through his chest. Then he felt that someone was nearby. 3 figures, walking slowly, carefully. He didn't know how he could feel them, but he did, like their presence touched the edge of his mind. The figures were in black suits, faces covered with metal masks. One of them carried a scanner that blinked red when it passed over Jake's hiding spot. Jake didn't move, didn't breathe. He was here, one voice said, flat and cold. "He's still close," said another. They moved past him, their boots crunching the forest floor. Jake waited until their sounds faded. Then he crawled out slowly. His heart was racing, but his mind was calm. Something inside him, something Valtteri was guiding him now. He ran again, this time smarter. He stepped where the ground was soft, where no sound would follow. He moved between trees like a shadow after 2 hours of running. He reached a river. He washed his face, drank water, and sat on a rock. His reflection in the water showed eyes glowing faintly. It scared him. He wasn't fully human anymore. But he wasn't alien either. Suddenly, he heard a soft beep. The small orb Lyra had given him was flashing red. Jake grabbed it quickly and crushed it in his hand. A blue wave of light spread out silently, then disappeared. Jake didn't know how long the cloaking would last. Maybe 1 hour, maybe 1 day, but he had to keep moving by morning. He found an old cabin deep in the woods, abandoned, dusty, filled with spiderwebs. It was perfect. He searched for tools, food, anything useful. Then he sat down at a wooden table and opened one of the alien files Lyra had uploaded to his wristband. The file played a strange sound, deep, echoing words in a language he didn't know, but he understood them. Somehow the voice said, "The seed must grow within the carrier." Until the moment of return, Jake's hands trembled. Was he carrying something inside him? Something waiting to activate? He touched his chest. The heartbeat felt normal. But the heat behind his skin never faded. Suddenly, a flash of pain shot through his head. He screamed and fell to the floor, his mind filled with visions again. An alien city burning, blue towers falling, creatures screaming. And then a single word in his mind, "Waken." Jake gasped for breath as the vision ended. He sat up, sweat dripping from his face. He felt stronger now, but also less himself. Parts of his memory were missing, replaced by strange symbols and sounds. Outside, a drone buzzed overhead. Jake ran to the door and stayed hidden behind the wall. The drone passed, scanning slowly, then flew away. But it meant they were getting closer. He couldn't stay in the cabin for long. He needed to move before nightfall. He needed help, but who could help someone like him? Then he remembered something Lyra had once said. "If you ever reach the city of Red Lake, find a woman named Sora. Tell her you carry the Valtteri." Jake didn't know who Sora was, but she was his only chance. He packed what little food he found, wrapped the wristband in cloth, and started walking. Red Lake was over 40 miles away, hidden beyond the hills, and he wasn't alone anymore. The hunters were everywhere now. They had drones, scanners, and satellites. But Jake had something they didn't: instinct, will, and the power of an ancient race flowing in his blood. As the sun set, he walked into the shadows of the mountains. Each step took him further from who he was and closer to what he was becoming. The chase had only begun, and Jake was ready to survive. Jake walked for hours through the forest and hills. His body didn't feel tired the way it used to. His legs kept moving. His heart beat steady. It was like something inside him was giving him extra strength, but the changes weren't only physical. Inside his mind, doors were opening, strange words, unfamiliar images, and feelings that didn't belong to him kept rising. He saw stars he'd never visited, heard songs sung by alien voices, and sometimes he remembered things that never happened in his life. They weren't his memories. They were the Valtteri's. He found shelter inside a cave as the wind howled through the trees. He sat by a rock and closed his eyes. The moment he did, another vision pulled him under. This one was clearer than the rest. He stood on a silver bridge, surrounded by tall, blue towers. The sky above was green, and 2 moons hung low. Around him walked beings made of light and crystal, tall, graceful, ancient. One of them looked at him, placing a hand on his chest. "You are the vessel." The voice echoed in his mind. The memory must be protected until the day of rebirth. Jake gasped and woke up. His chest was glowing softly through his shirt. He pulled the fabric aside and saw a mark. It wasn't a scar. It was a symbol shaped like a star inside. Spiral, pulsing faintly with blue light. He touched it, and his fingers tingled. A whisper filled his ears. "Protect the memory." Jake leaned against the rock, breathing slowly. The visions weren't just memories. They were instructions. Messages left by the Valttari long ago. And now, they were waking up inside him, suddenly. He heard footsteps outside the cave. He stood up quickly and stayed quiet. A voice called, "Jake, are you in there?" It wasn't robotic or cold. It was human, soft, female. Jake peeked outside. A woman stood there, holding a small lantern. She had short black hair and wore a dark green cloak. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the area. Jake stepped out slowly, hands raised. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman lowered her light. "My name is Sora. Alira sent me." Jake froze. This was the person Alira had mentioned. He nodded slowly. "Then you know what I carry?" Sora walked closer. "I don't just know. I've seen it before. But never active. Not like this." They sat inside the cave, and Sora gave him water and food. As Jake ate, she watched him closely. "You've seen the visions?" she asked. Jake nodded. "Yes, every night now." Sora pulled out a small silver cube and placed it between them. It lit up, showing a map of stars and a planet marked in gold. "That was the Valttari homeworld," she said. "They called it Nocthera. It was destroyed thousands of years ago, but their memory didn't die." Jake stared at the glowing planet. "So what happens now?" he asked. Sora looked serious. "Now you choose. Either carry the memory and let it guide you, or destroy it and be free." Jake touched the mark on his chest. "I don't think I can destroy it," he said quietly. "It feels alive." Sora nodded. "That's because it is. The memory isn't just data. It's a living history, a will." Jake sat in silence, thinking deeply. He wasn't sure who he was anymore. Part human, part something else. But he still had his own thoughts, his own heart. What would happen if I let it grow? he asked. Sora looked at him. The Valtteri's knowledge would return. Their cities, their science, their power, but so would their enemies. Jake stood up and looked at the stars above. "I don't want to be a god or a weapon," he said, "but maybe I can use this to protect people." Sora smiled for the first time. "Then you're stronger than most." That night, Jake had another dream. This time, he wasn't just watching. He was walking among the Valtari as one of them. They bowed to him, calling him the Keeper, and a great library of light opened before him, filled with every secret they had ever known. When he woke up, he didn't feel afraid anymore. He felt ready. He looked at Sora. "Where do we go next?" She pointed to the east. "There's a place called Soul Point, hidden under the desert. It holds the last key to unlock the full memory." Jake nodded. He didn't know what he would find there. But he was no longer running. He was searching now. For truth, for purpose, and for the full memory of a lost empire hidden inside him. Jake and Sora walked for 3 days across dry hills and broken lands. The sun burned during the day, and the cold bit deep at night. But Jake didn't feel tired. The Valtteri energy inside him kept him strong, focused, alive. They reached Soul Point. On the 4th morning, to the normal eye, it looked like a flat, lifeless desert. But when Jake stepped forward, the symbol on his chest glowed again. The ground beneath his feet shimmered and cracked open slowly. A large, round platform rose. From the sand, covered in strange alien symbols, Sora looked at Jake and nodded. "This is it," she whispered. The final key. Jake stepped onto the platform, and it reacted instantly. Blue light spread across the sand, forming a circle of energy. The ground split open with a soft hiss, revealing stairs leading deep. Underground, they climbed down into the silence, the walls glowing softly as they walked. The air was cool and still, untouched for thousands of years. At the bottom, they found a chamber filled with floating orbs and spinning rings. In the center stood a tall crystal pillar, shining like ice but humming with warmth. Jake walked toward it. The crystal responded to his presence, lighting up brighter with each step. He placed his hand on it, and the world around him faded. He wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was standing in space, surrounded by stars. A voice echoed through his mind, calm, wise, and ancient. "You are the last vessel, the final keeper of what we were." Jake tried to speak, but the voice continued. "You carry our knowledge, our pain, our dreams, but your choices are your own." Images rushed through him, galaxies created and destroyed, alliances made and broken. He saw the Valtari fall, not from war, but from their own pride. They had reached too far, become too powerful, and lost who they were. Then the voice said, "Will you rebuild what we were, or will you be something new?" Jake's heart pounded. He had the power now to awaken forgotten cities, restore weapons, even reshape the earth. But was that the right path? He thought of Alira, of Sora, of the ones who had helped him. He thought of his own life before all. This began, simple, human, honest. He opened his eyes, the chamber returning around him. Sora looked at him, unsure. Jake smiled gently. "I made my choice," he said. He placed his other hand on the crystal and whispered, "Sleep." The pillar dimmed, and the lights in the chamber faded one by one. The memory was not destroyed. It was locked, hidden again, safe until truly needed. Sora stepped forward, shocked. "You're not going to use it?" Jake shook his head. "No, I'm not the one to bring them back. I'm not a god, I'm just a man." As they walked back up toward the surface, Jake felt lighter. The weight inside his chest was still there, but it no longer controlled him. He was human first, always. Outside, the wind blew softly, and the stars were beginning to shine. Jake looked at the horizon, a quiet peace in his eyes. He had been changed, yes. He had touched power older than time, but he had not forgotten who he was. Sora placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're different," she said. "But you're still Jake." He smiled. "That's enough." Later that night, he wrote a message using Alira's old device. It was simple, but powerful. "To anyone who finds this, know that I carry a secret, but I chose not to use it. I chose to stay human." He sent it to a secure channel and destroyed the device. No trace, no trail, just a quiet man walking away. The hunters would keep looking, but they'd find nothing. Jake had disappeared into mountains, forests, places machines could not follow. And as time passed, stories began to spread. Whispers of a man who glowed under moonlight. A man who healed. Fast ran with wolves and vanished like a shadow. Some said he was a ghost, others a legend. But Jake knew the truth. He was no myth. He was a human who had been chosen by something ancient. But in the end, he had chosen himself, and that made all the difference.